Okay, good evening. Welcome to the Historic Area Commission meeting, Thursday, April 11th, 2024. Let's start by taking the roll call. Every commissioner can state their name, please.
Cynthia Batty, Lisa Duck,
Tara Hayward with us.
Michael Westman.
I would like to start by noting some changes that we'll have to make to the agenda. So the first, 161 East Second Street. So our architect will not be able to be in attendance tonight. She had a personal matter that called her away, so she's not able to be here, but I did receive notes. Unfortunately, we cannot look at this application tonight, and I apologize that no one reached out to you prior, but the notes that the things that we need in order to consider this are we need materials, also a reference to the existing, what did she say? Sorry, this is very small font. Was there I don't imagine there was a conversation with your architect prior to the application being submitted?
There was not.
Ms. Hamrick? Okay, so she notes here that that the application is not approved as presented because the proposed work is not appropriate, that it's an enlarging of an existing dwelling, and that the design removes any reference to the existing building's architectural features and scale in application that is for all purposes demolition of all historic features in new construction, and it does not conform with the guidelines and standards. So what she is going to do is she will reach out to you, and then with the modifications, this can be brought before the commission at the next meeting.
I'd like to see it. I'd like to see what she's passed judgment on. Why can't we look at it? We're the commissioners.
Because she's not here, she sent it out to everyone. It's in the packet.
Yeah, it's just, we need more detail about.
It's considered an incomplete application.
But she said categorically there, no.
What she is saying is that the proposed scope of work does not conform with the guidelines and standards, which is what we base our decisions collectively off of.
That's not what I'm responding to. I'm responding to her saying that the design is not appropriate. And as long as it's historical, I mean, I don't know if the architect is here to talk about that.
Well,
but-
and that doesn't adhere to the guidelines. I did some research that you have to use similar materials. So if it was a wooden clapboard house, it has to be wooden siding, and that's in both the National Park Service guidelines and our guidelines, and so that's consistent.
I think what she's also looking at are elements like the shape of the dormer. So it's a pedimented gable dormer, and that's different than what's proposed in the new design. So we have extant character defining features of the home that still exist, but they are not continued in the design that was proposed.
I'd like to see a presentation, even a brief one. To be honest with you, it's so confusing to look at all this stuff, and we don't know what's really going to be considered until the day of this. I don't have time to sit there and read all these things over and over and over, only for them not to be presented.
I can only say what is presented here. We cannot consider an application that is incomplete.
Stop, just to give to Miss Batty.
Sure.
I think that's.
Well, the only point I'd like to make is I did show this to all of you last month. So this is what I showed you, just a Photoshop. And this is the drawing that my architect, who's here, Will Hurd, has prepared. So the only difference is just.
And I think the brick still remains an issue based on the guidelines and standards, just because we kind of went over it is.
Would you, not being a smart aleck, it's got vinyl siding on it now.
No, I completely understand that. And I made that mention in that point at the last meeting as well, that unfortunately there isn't a whole lot of exterior that you can salvage. However, in the standards that we have to go on based on the Department of Interior standards and our guidelines, it says that if it was a wooden sided building, it should remain a wooden sided building. The vinyl siding obviously is an issue, and you are upgrading it by repairing it. We agree with that. It's these, it's the brick is one of them, I think, and then the encapsulation, oh my goodness, Layla talked about that at the last meeting, it's kind of encapsulating the house. I think that's where she was saying that can't happen.
But she also said that we as a commission had the ability to override that and make a different decision. And so I'm asking us to not be told what to think, but to think of the good of the neighborhood.
We're
and
not,
the whole environment.
with all due respect, that's not what's happening here. We have to conform with the guidelines and standards. And if this application does not conform with them, then we can't consider it, right, as presented.
Okay,
So what we can do moving forward is that Ms. Hamron will reach out to you, Mr. Toner, and your architect, and you can discuss this and make the changes that are suggested, or I'm not an architect, so I cannot speak to what this is. That's why we have a subject matter expert, and it's unfortunate that she cannot be with us tonight, but unfortunately, that's what we have to leave this.
I spoke to Patrick Pinnell, who is also building a house here on the Strand. And they had looked at this property and they had a structural engineer evaluate it in 2019. And the structural engineer determined that the foundation was structurally unsound despite the steel beams that were put in. I did share this with Mr. Toner. He just wants to get his project done, but it was still a tear down when he bought this property. So if it's a tear down, do you still have to make it comply with what it was before?
Unfortunately, we don't have Mr. Bergstrom or Ms. Hamron here, so this really isn't an appropriate discussion for us to even have right now, because we don't have the knowledge to make that determination.
And the previous
Yeah.
homeowner came in front of HAC and said that he had gotten the structural solidification of the basement done so that it did not have to be demolished anymore.
I have an engineering report that says that that's not true.
But that's from
So-
2019.
Well, we don't know when he came.
He can't, I was on HAC and I've only been on HAC a year, so it's been.
It was in the
within
last year? It's possible that he also came and lied to you so he could sell his property. So,
Well, all I can say for now is that I apologize that you were not notified of this sooner. Ms. Hamlin will reach out to you and we can go.
Did you ask for the architect a moment ago if he was here?
Oh, no,
No,
there's nothing I can add.
Can I see that structural report, Jeff? Friendly with him. Bjorn.
we do need to move on though, because we have to.
So my question is, Tara, and
Yes,
I'm happy to let you move on. My question would be, if Will and Layla get together and make whatever to make Layla happy.
So I just really want to clarify on language. It's not about making anyone happy. But, and I understand, I just really want to clarify that this is all based on the guidelines and standards. This is what was adopted by council. This is what was codified. This is not any of our personal preferences. So I just want to clarify that point.
Understood. I'm not perceiving this as personal in any way. That's not my point, I guess. Whatever the guidelines would be, if once, there's extenuating circumstances to this house. That's the bottom line. And so if the guidelines were what the guidelines were, then why would we need 5 commissioners? You would just go, nope, doesn't do it, done. But no. There's humans here involved that get the opportunity to make that choice. Like, hey, this house has looked like an eyesore for 40 years, 40. And you have in your lifetime the opportunity to say, hey, it will blend into the rest of Newcastle. But I get it. So my point is, I'm going to lose a month. I'm going to lose a month from being able to start my project until Will and Layla can talk. And then we get to come back to you and get your input on what Layla approves.
We need to have all of the information in front of us to make an informed decision and a consideration. That's really all I can say at this point. And I look forward to seeing.
So a project of this magnitude normally, because essentially you are redesigning the house. So a project of that magnitude would have to have exactly what windows you were using, exactly what dimensions you were using, everything down to so that is what you have there. And was that provided to Layla?
But the materials.
Right, so, okay,
not.
we did see this
We did see
portion,
this
so
portion.
we would need the specifics of what windows you were using, in materials, what you were using on the roof. I understand that right now, this is more of like approving a concept versus like the actual design, but in order for you to get the construction going, essentially the whole thing, the whole encompassing project has to be approved, so. And then really design feature wise, it comes down to essentially by the guidelines and standards going back to last month, it kind of has to at least mimic what was there. We understand that what's there is an eyesore now, but at least has to try to stay true to the spirit of originally what was there. And that's based on, like I said, federal and our.
So you prefer to see wood on the front?
I think that would be one of the first things that Layla was having discussions on, the fact that some of the woodworking up at the top is original to the house, if some way that could be incorporated in the design, that sort of thing. Any existing elements of the house that are salvageable, which I understand is not a lot. But it really does go down to mimicking what was there in the first place. It's not so much the size and the expansion, on
Does it need
the side of the house.
to look like a single house that has another house built next? Is that
That
part of
was-
this criteria?
That
We
was
were
actually
just talking about that last time.
correct.
That's ridiculous.
I really don't know that there's anything else that we really can't continue this discussion right now. There's nothing to just.
About what we think, what she said. These guys have a month now to go back and try to figure out how to do something. They can't take another step until they have a concept approved.
Typically, what would happen with this is I'm not sure why this was brought forward as a tier 2 review. This step should have been a consultation. I don't think that it would have been an appropriate step for a determination to be made today, because while we did review this last time, we didn't have the architectural renderings. We didn't have those drawings. We were just talking about a concept. And I think that was my feeling, that that's how this would continue today when this was presented.
As reviewing a
And
rendering?
Leila did say,
Or-
no, Leila did say that there needed to be a conversation, between herself and the architect, and that
Does
is
that
not
take
some,
place?
that
Architect?
I asked that, I believe, at the beginning of this conversation, and that's not a conversation that we can have because we are not architects. So I apologize. Ms. Hamron will be in touch with you, and we'll go from there. So the next thing on the item is, the next thing on the agenda is, we're going to have to our discussion regarding the Market Square Brick Project, because we do not have Jeff here. And having accurate information regarding the historic district given to potential buyers. So those two things are going to have to be moved to the May meeting. These two items.
This agenda does not include public comments as an item.
We ask for public comments after each item is discussed. We ask for,
Okay,
yeah, I think we've always
Down at the bottom, public, and they
on
can only
agenda
comment on
items
agenda
only, so
items.
as we go through each application, we ask for feedback. Or if there are any
confusing.
comments. And I think with that, we can move to approve the March 14th, 2023 minutes.
I have some updates to that, please.
Yes.
On page 1, under the minutes. That's out Ms. Batty, that's me. The last sentence, Ms. Batty reiterated that she would like to see the agenda sent to the commissioners prior to the meeting. That's not what I said or what I meant. It was prior to publication to the world at large. On the website, you could say,
What would you like that to say?
publication on the website
Instead of what?
instead of prior to the meeting. We do see it prior to the meeting.
Okay, so you wanted to say send to the commissioners? You
Prior
want,
to publication on the website.
I had a correction under consultation for 161 East Second Street.
and what page is that on?
It's on page 3, it's the second sentence.
Yes,
It's just missing the word no. It's a typo, but it does change the meaning of the sentence. It says there was longer a standard per the guidelines.
Between was and longer, there should be
in the
no.
last sentence, wait a minute. She also opined that the hack should review the pattern. We're talking about the second paragraph.
Second part, yeah, if you're counting the 161 East Second Street, that is an introductuary paragraph. So the second,
The second full paragraph.
Mhm.
A motion was made by Ms. Doak.
Details on the history of the house prior to Mr. Tucker purchasing it.
Yeah,
that,
there
yeah,
was
the paragraph
no
be-
standard, yeah.
Okay, I'm not clear on where you're speaking of, I'm sorry.
It's a little hard,
Oh, the second paragraph under consultations.
yeah. The last.
No longer, there was no longer? Got it. Okay,
I had one on the previous page. I don't think that Mr. Wade was confused. It would be 1, 2, 3, 4 paragraph down. Paragraph starts, Mr. Wade noted the building has been many things throughout history. And he is not entirely troubled by the fact that there may not be flowers in the front. The flower beds are in the back of the building. Do we want to leave that
I think that is actually what he said. I think he was just
that was
making a
what he
point
said.
is that he doesn't really, we're not here to discuss, I mean, I don't wanna reopen that conversation, but I think that was exactly how he worded it, but he was speaking figuratively, is he didn't want to get into the weeds about what they were planting, just that they'd not followed.
I don't believe that should be made, changed without Mr. Wade being
Correct.
here, since he was
Yeah,
the one.
Okay, fair enough. Leave it then. I noted that on the last page 5, the recommendations to city council apparently never got to city council. They didn't appear in the meetings, city council meetings. So that's part of a larger issue, that I want to talk about at the end of the meeting, and I think we need an action item list that we track and manage through our minutes. Because we're coming up with ideas. I identified a whole bunch of ideas and things we said we wanted to do in these minutes. And there's no way to record, track, memorialize, or actually do them. So I think we need to look at that.
I think since we don't have that as an agenda item on this, for this meeting, we can move that to the next meeting.
Okay.
It's
We'll wait another moment.
important that we're sticking to the items that are on the agenda.
Okay.
Are there any other changes that anyone's has? Comments that they corrections they would like to make, pardon me.
I do have a question. If on the agenda, we have an item that says any other comments from commissioners, does that allow us to talk about other things in the future? Or are we only allowed to talk about specific topics?
Well, I think it's specific topics because we are obligated to let the public know what we're discussing. So I don't think I don't have an answer for that question really, but I mean, I don't know that that's something that we can do.
The city attorney was very specific about that when we did took the ethics training, that anything that's entered into as far as a discussion, if it becomes an actual discussion, it has to be tabled and moved to the agenda of the next meeting. You can't enter into a full-fledged discussion without it being on the agenda.
I'll have a whole bunch of agenda items for the next meeting.
Send them to me and regarding the minutes for the March 14th. Oh, actually, I do have a correction. It says March 14th, 2023, and it should be March 14th. So,
And that actually, if minutes of February 28th, 2023 on the first page, maybe that's also should be 2024.
good catch.
You got that one, Kathy?
Yes.
Okay. Can I make a request regarding this document? It was sent to us as a PDF. Can somebody please put it in a human readable point size and send it out again?
So this was also, this is not standard procedure, and that was noted that these notes will not be sent out to the commission each time.
Okay.
It's only because Ms. Hamron is here tonight, so she wanted us to be able to see what she had.
But I can't see it.
I know, it is very small, but it is, they did send this out to all of us via email, so you can enlarge it.
It's a PDF. It's really hard to enlarge it, but okay. I mean, I can't print it larger.
If we move to approve the minutes as amended for March 14th, or do we have to wait for a correction for next month?
You can say as corrected.
So I move to approve the minutes from March 14th, 2024 to include the corrections.
All in favor?
And I,
Motion approved. Okay, so we are moving on to 109, Mr. Kristen and Donald. Voting.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you. Are you Mr. Bodie?
I am.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Let me get your application here. Would you like to start with telling us about this project?
Yes, 109 Strand, we purchased it in September. We're moved from Kennett Square, Pennsylvania. We're empty nesters. And I grew up, I went to Newark High School and always, I owned a painting company for 30 years. I've worked in town many times. Honestly, never thought I'd be lucky enough to find an empty lot here. So very excited. We met the Flowers next door. We hired the same firm that designed our house, everything uniform, best we can. Just really excited to, so you guys think if everything goes, the plans are accordingly done well to you guys. Go from there.
So, again, I apologize that Ms. Cameron is not here this evening, but I can start by letting you know just a couple of the notes that she made, and she will be reaching out to the architect. So, one of the comments that she made is she'd like to see elevations showing the adjacent properties to confirm the relationship between roof bridge elevations. She did note that the louvered and shutters are not of approved materials per the guidelines and standards. So because this is a new building, it's possible that we can consider like an engineered wood or an engineered wood. So provide a list of all of the materials for the roof, windows, doors, porch trim, and deck railings. Provide a roof plan and building sections, transverse and longitudinal. And revise panels on first floor window shutters. And what she meant by that in our discussion, let me find the gutters are beautiful, by the way, the copper gutters, so always lovely to see. It did provide a lot of details, so we do appreciate that.
She could just copy the application from the other house and use the same.
so you're empty nesters, but you're having 4 bedrooms.
Or hoping they visit.
Yeah.
We'll get there eventually.
It's pretty.
It is very pretty.
You're gonna put an elevator in?
Yes.
Good boy.
Yes, we talked to a lot of people in town, they said, even a resale value, you know, down the road.
Yeah, but there's your body also.
Yeah,
And the unknown futures of your bodies.
yeah.
Yeah, very good.
They've actually been printed twice on the.
Yeah.
I noticed that when I was looking.
I was wondering why it's like, it feels like this is never ending.
Yeah.
So on, maybe she describes it a little better here. I think what she means, and again, just going by our conversation and what she's written here, which I'm sure she will go into more detail when she discusses this with you. So the panels on the first floor shutters, there's like 3 panels on each side, and I think she was saying that perhaps there should be 2 panels to match the louvered shutters, or to be more within. I'm trying to think of how to describe this in.
All the
as
other
I'm not
builders
an
in town have
architect, yeah.
too. That would be an easy way to do it.
Yeah. So that is a note she made, and I will let her go into more detail about that. Let's see. So the crown, she mentioned the crown molding materials weren't specified. The door and window trim materials were not specified, and the door materials were not specified. And if it would, then that conforms with the guidelines and standards. Window lintel materials need to be specified. And she mentioned there is no scale comparison of peak height for comparison with adjacent properties, but I think I listed that already in the previous comments she made.
Don't all these documents say that they're gonna be wood windows? The Jeld-Wen windows are gonna be made of wood,
The windows, yes.
okay? So
And
what's the issue then? I'm just trying to understand.
That could be something that she might have overlooked, perhaps.
no, I think she asked, she said that the windows were, the wood in the windows were conforming, but she asked about the,
I think is it the trim?
yeah, something about the door and window lintel materials. So the surround of the doorway would have to be wood as well. Question about the simulated divided lights. Are they visible exterior or were they within the glass? Okay.
Front stair and metal railing conform with HAC guidelines and standards. They do, yeah. The architectural shingle roofing conforms. Copper gutters and downspouts conform. The alternative wood siding conforms.
I do have a question because hardy plank is not wood, so
So it was changed in the guidelines, and I think also because this is a new building. And it's not an addition on an existing historic home, there's more leeway for a use of alternative materials. Any comments from fellow commissioners?
What do they have to do to move this project forward?
Well, this is a consultation.
Yeah, okay.
So we're just looking at the design, at the. I think that what's been presented to us is beautiful and, it's just these few items here that Layla noted, and once, you know, she reaches out to the architect, once we have this information, then they can come forward for approval.
Will she be able to reach out to us to make the May meeting?
I'm sorry, for the May meeting?
No, yes.
Sure, and I can, do you have her email address or her contact information?
Well, I had it 3 years ago. I'm not sure if it's changed.
Okay, I can,
I'd rather her email me.
sure, which I believe she was planning on doing, but,
If you don't know when,
I don't know when, but I imagine that she will do it before the May meeting. Not I imagine, she will, because it's hard to speak for someone else when they're not here. I don't know the time frame to.
I don't want her to reach out to you. It was like a couple days.
Yeah,
And I just thought it was kind of unfair. We can get you the information as soon as I get it. But I have to know when, we need to do it.
have we clearly given you the list of her concerns?
No.
Because I'm looking at them right now, so let's start, let me go through those concerns with you. Styrene, plastic, or aluminum louvers and shutters do not conform with HAC guidelines and standards. I don't know what she's referring
I
to,
don't know.
but you need to come back with an answer for that, okay? So wood windows are okay, exterior light fixtures, okay, brick masonry, okay. Alternative wood siding is okay. Architectural shingle roof, okay. Copper gutter downspouts, we're all gonna come and steal them and put them on our house. Crown molding materials not specified. I think it says they're wood in the materials you provided, but just clarify that it's a wood,
No, we specify python, I know that, so.
Yeah,
we
It
can't
is,
do
that's
that.
two different things. We already went, Tara already went through this.
I know, but I wanna make sure they know exactly what you have to do so that this thing moves forward. So would you rather I didn't go through this with you?
No, right.
Okay, so you understand that that's gotta be wood.
It's gotta be wood.
Door and window trim materials not specified, the profiles are okay, but you need to specify and it's probably gotta be wood. Door materials not specified. So they need to be wood. Door and window lintel material not specified. So is it stone or is it masonry or is it, what is it? Those pretty things on the top of each of the windows.
I am in communication with Ms. Hammer, and what I will do is ask her to reach out to you.
I know, but I'm giving them the list of things that they need to do so they can be ready for the conversation. Unless you object to my doing that.
I don't
Okay.
object to that.
I'll continue. The rear porch materials are not specified. You can have no vinyl or Fibrex trims on the railings, which apparently is proposed. I don't know if that's true or not, I'm just telling you what she said. Second floor rear deck materials not specified. Front stair, and metal railing conform with HAC guidelines, so you're okay on that. There's no scale comparison as Tara said before of the peak height. So want to see it in context. And that's the comments. I just want to make sure you know what you need to do to make something happen sooner rather than
Okay.
2 or 3 months from now, so. Thank you.
So you had said that you weren't sure about the specifications. It might just be the materials were confusing that you provided, because you had said you weren't sure about the plastic or aluminum louver shutters. In the materials that were provided, I read through, and for the colonial style ones, that was the material that they gave. I don't know if you're using a different one that's not specified here. So I mean, that might be as easy as clarifying with the vendor as to the shutter material, because it says in the packet that they were, aluminum.
But it's been to say, I'm telling you, we use the same specs for 107 as for 109.
Right.
How many use?
Right, so it might just that is simply, because I believe you, that, you know, you've got that covered, but whatever materials we were provided here don't specify. They're very detailed as to the measurements and the materials and but if you look at the different styles, and it just says that the architectural louver colonial shutters are reinforced aluminum alloy and foam PVC rails. So,
some of them here, yeah, foam, PVC sheet machined and interlocked.
yeah,
Yes.
so I looked, because, you know, there was one particular shutter that was a wood shutter, but that was the board and batten shutters, which aren't the ones that you're showing in the actual rendering. So we would just, if, obviously you probably have one that's picked out that is wood, that's a colonial style shutter, but we would just need those specs in the next updated packet.
And I think Tara mentioned it already, but just to be clear, she wants to see a roof plan and building sections, transverse and longitudinal. And elevation, I think we did talk about that. Okay. How it fits into the rest of the houses. Yeah, the streetscape, yeah. Otherwise, it's beautiful.
It is, it's a very beautiful building and it's thoughtfully put together. There's just a few minor clarifications you have to.
Do you have any questions for us? Are there any comments from the public regarding this project?
You think she'll be in touch with us, or you think we should reach out?
She'll be in touch. I will, presumably she will be in touch with you. I
It sounds
will,
like the main thing is just fresh wood,
yeah.
everything wood, and nothing 50-50.
But there is, again, because it is a new build, there is a little bit more leeway for an engineered wood material. So that's something
Just not on the shutters and windows.
to discuss.
No. I think the fact they can use hardy plank is great.
Well, no, she does note, provide louvers and shutters of approved materials, wood or engineered wood. Again, because it's a new build, there's a little more.
And wait till she reaches out to you, but if it goes too long, reach out to her. You know, don't just wait. I don't think you will.
I
He
will,
won't be, yeah, he's ready.
I'll send her a note after this meeting.
Yeah.
And, again, if there's a problem, you can contact the office, and they should give her a nudge for.
Thank you.
Just for this, I guess. This is great.
It's gonna be transformed between that and the Canal House. It's gonna be great.
Okay, so, moving on to the consultation for, installing a rental bike rack at East Third and Delaware Street. Is there anyone? Is Austin Markland or Matthew Markland here? Okay. So for this, I don't think any of the materials from that made it into our.
There's materials for the proposal. It doesn't say anything about where it's gonna go or how it looks or.
Here it is.
And I think East Third and Delaware is right in the middle of the most historic of the historic district.
It is, so that's why it's not an appropriate place for this.
But there's a place right down the way that would work on the other side of Delaware Street. There's a bike rack on the way to the bathrooms.
Yes,
Why not
there
put it in?
is,
Which is similar
So-
to their venue in Delaware City.
right, so if you, and that's actually not, that's not here, but I did take a Google Earth shot, and what Layla and I had discussed is she's going to reach out to them and discuss this, but so you can see in,
Northeast corner. I can tell you that the Wicks will be here and it's like.
Well, I mean, it's just, I just don't, it's not a feasible location for many, many reasons based on streetscape. And I don't even know if it would be permitted by the state or the federal government based on its location.
Well, it's actually, that's trust property. So I don't think you could put it together without the trust approving it. But did city council approve this? Or,
no, that's why it's here, because
Okay.
the streetscape is part of the historic district.
Okay.
It's part of the National Historic Landmark District, so that is that's purview. So what is,
there are two places it could go that it wouldn't be a horrible eyesore. I mean, I understand why they wanna do it, but one is the place where we already have the bike racks. Cause it's off the street, it's already, that area is already determined for that. The other possibility is that on Second Street, there's an undeveloped strip of land, which I think is trust or city property.
you're talking about that recessed garden? Mhm.
It could potentially go in there too.
Oh.
That's something Layla had mentioned, or in what she did say, and you probably saw this here, I know I'm struggling to read it. I'm wearing my glasses, so that's saying something.
Well, it could go at the wharf too.
There's
So
already one at the port.
there's one at the park.
Why do we need another one? Oh, just ask.
That wasn't, that was. Consulted on that installation, so we can't use that, so. We can't use that as a reference here.
Well, but still, is there a need? I mean, I don't know what the need is. I don't know what the unmet need is.
I don't either, I
There's
mean.
a lot of bike
it's-
lovers in town.
There's a lot of bike lovers in town, but I don't have any data for that. But what Layla did say is that the application is not approved as presented because the proposed work is not appropriate. She references to the location in Delaware City. So here's Google Earth. This is the lot where the bike racks are located. So from above, and then this is what it looks like from the street. And so they're already in a setback location in Delaware City, so it doesn't really make sense that you would go from, there being situated off the main public right of way to front and center on,
Right on the park.
right
Yeah.
on the park.
That's
And
This is helpful. Thank you.
there was some concern expressed regarding safety of that location. Being one of the busiest intersections in town. people,
Go through it at a
They
high
go
rate of
through-
speed, yes,
they
do.
stop, yep. She also noted that, uh, so the proposed location in Newcastle is highly visible on the main thoroughfare, adjacent to the green and other prominent buildings. This represents an intrusion on the sidewalk, a key feature of this location. And that's why it's important to have all the stakeholders involved in the process, because you may think that a sidewalk is large enough to put a bike rack on, but then when you add bikes to that, you may not have enough room so that you're ADA compliant or
Yeah.
room to walk.
Well, not only that, but looking at the dimensions of the rack is, I walked by there today just to visualize it so that I'd be prepared for the meeting, and there really is no essentially like 8-foot location that you could put it that would not either obscure the historic wayside sign, be right in front of the bollard planters, which would push it even further out into the sidewalk,
Yeah.
or right in front of the benches, or right in front of the other historical marker.
It's also in front of one of the most important buildings
It's a
in the
key building.
United
Yeah.
States.
It's a key building. I mean, and using, so, and I don't know the actual government layout, but I know as a resident of this city, I don't own the sidewalk, but I'm responsible for the sidewalk,
Right.
which means the state and the federal government, if that is in their geolocation, so to speak, there's, I mean,
They have liability.
they have liability, there's, rules about concessionaires, there's
Yeah.
rules about the, you know, as soon as you enter onto the green, that's now, the federal
Yeah,
government's,
that's federal property.
easement, and then the courthouse
Well,
is state run, so there's rules about concessionaires, which I mean, this is all just taking into consideration, that not really anything we have purview over,
Right.
but just saying that, taking that all into account, that we're talking about a key resource, one of the, you know, a building of national significance. And there really is no space for it
No,
anyway. And the sign, if they use a similar sign to the one in Delaware City, is very large too.
So, she did mention that there are no materials stipulated for the signage. So where this can go from here is that, Layla can reach out to them and she can have a conversation and they can discuss areas where this would be more appropriate. And, go from there, you know.
but it involves many, as you point out, many other stakeholders. So if it gets plotted in the place we were talking about, they're not gonna be able to put their sign facing out onto the street,
Yeah.
right? So that may not satisfy them.
Right, and so this is just, again, this is one part of a much larger process. I mean, we can't comment on, you know, businesses that the city has in that process.
No, but I am saying that the city would have to be involved in saying, yes, you can put it there, or no, you can't put it there.
Yes,
The city and possibly the state and possibly the federal
Yeah.
government, depending on where they're thinking
Right.
about putting it.
Yeah.
so this, and I'm sure Layla will coordinate, but this is something that will involve probably the input, like also, it will involve the input of the city administrator and just other stakeholders. So
Yeah,
this
I-
is one piece of it.
I think the city
Um,
council would have to approve this too, because it's so invasive. If
Yeah.
it's in a major space. Be put.
Absolutely,
So-
and that's, again, that's why these commissions exist, because.
And it does sound like, and I'm sorry they're not here, because it, I mean, from their application, it sounds like they're willing to work with an alternate location. They're just basing it off of an area that was proposed to them, but this area is not appropriate from a key building standpoint, from a streetscape standpoint, and then also a liability and a blockage of the flow of traffic. Stan.
I wonder who suggested East Third and Delaware Street to them. Oh, well, so remand it to, Ayla.
Yeah.
I do have, there was a comment that came in, so I want to read it into record just because it's important that people are represented. They were not able to make it to the meeting. But this is from Benjamin Ryan, who writes, I saw the weekly agenda for April 11th. I don't think we will be able to make it, but we wanted to comment on the study for a bike rack at East Third and Delaware Street. A more fitting and safer place where bike racks are down by the waterfront or pier. The proposed space is small, close to the road and dangerous. People drive through the stop sign regularly. That's what he commented.
Oh, that's helpful.
So, it's very helpful.
And then having, worked in the park where they have these beach cruiser kind of things, these are not meant for road biking, which then puts the bicyclists wanting to be on our brick sidewalks that people can't barely walk on without tripping, let
Yeah, it's
alone
unsuitable for
ride
that.
a bike. And the people who ride beach cruisers, they're meant to be ridden on trails, not city streets with traffic. So the concern would be then, are these
Put it-
people,
Put it down by the trail.
right?
Trail down.
Yeah,
And I think,
which is where it would be best served on.
way, even people coming into town, if you're driving in and you stop, like if one of the other locations I was thinking could be the new parking lot on West Third somewhere. So else.
Yeah, it could go in the parking.
Yeah,
And there's electricity there too, because we have charging stations there, so.
Yep.
That stuff would have to get sorted out, pays for stuff like that, right? Yeah.
I mean, I would be interested to know how much these rental bicycles are gonna be,
Yeah, well, we have,
Just
apparently we
to-
have some.
just to, have the attitude that if you build it, they will come, doesn't make sense either. I mean, if they're not really used, the ones we already have, I don't know that it makes sense to have more.
I know that. There's, I know that with the existing rental bikes that are there, the city gets $1 for every bike that's rented, I think was what was stipulated,
That will not fix anything.
so.
Okay.
But then too, I mean, we're we were asked, this was put in front of us to say, is this an
We're looking to
appropriate
say this,
streetscape location? Is this an appropriate business venture outside of a key building? I agree with everything that everyone's saying about the economic feasibility of a second bike rent company, but it's kind of. Yeah, if we find an appropriate location for them, have at it, but.
But I mean, what we've been asked to do is to approve the second in Delaware situation, which I don't think is.
Third and.
Third.
Third's Delaware.
Correct, which it's just not an appropriate location for really any concessionaire business.
So reenactment corner.
Well, and I think that's something else. It's how we use that space. That space is used for public events. It's used for Spirit of Christmas, Separation Day, when we have parades, people
Well,
want.
parades, that's another
Yeah,
big issue.
that's-
That's why the bump outs was such a mess.
And that's,
Same argument.
that's like prime real estate for parades because you have those high granite curbs. People like to sit there and just people stand behind them so they get a better view. So, but Layla can reach out to them and go from there. Are there any comments from the public regarding this application?
Well, Mr. Bike is here.
Yeah, I mean, we felt that, I felt personally, and also worked with the city and the city administrators, that there was in fact a place for a town-centric bike rental place that would take on people on bike tours, that would be, the wharf is that, the Finn at the wharf which again, I think is equitable, you should look at too, from a, from a hack point of view.
I just want to clarify there, we couldn't look at it from a hack point of view because hack was not consulted on that. So I just want to state that.
Well, I'd like to understand that. So if you're not consulted, it went ahead, I don't know.
Yeah, so the streetscape is part of the purview of the Historic Area Commission, and that might sound, like these are all based on the guidelines that were adopted by council. They were codified. So it's not subjective. It's not, well, we just don't want this here. We think this is, it's not our own personal opinions.
Although I have to say that the previous conversation sounded a lot like that. So,
Oh, just definitely not.
oh no, you was like, should we have another bike rack in town? Should we, bike share in town? Is it gonna be economically feasible? Does it look nice, basically?
Well, and that's why I drew the conversation back
Yeah.
to say that what we're voting on here today is the
Is-
fact that it's a request to put
Right.
a bike rack in front of the most historic building in town and a key building, which then elevates our review process to a next level because it's a key building. And I would caution you that there are probably concessionaire requirements from the state and the federal government to put something that close to something with a federal easement on it. And that would be a nightmare process to go through.
Yeah, well-
I'm just,
Yeah, no, I understand. I mean, the location is a separate, is a absolutely valid issue.
Well, I think we're all in agreement that if we can find a place for it, why
Yeah,
not?
I don't think anyone
Yeah.
is opposed to having rental bikes. I think that the question is just finding the right location for them.
I can offer you your point about if you were. Saw it when the first bike racks were hit. They may go away, there will hit a time when they will go away. Your next question is,
Mhm.
what do we do about the guys that are going to replace them? And if you establish those boundaries now. When the next application comes in, you can say it's within our purview, not within our purview. So it's more of a future vision as opposed to the reaction that.
Oh, absolutely.
I think there's a lot that could be dug up in the fact that it wasn't run by Hack first.
Mhm.
I just think people are forbearing right now. Because technically Hack could say, you didn't ask us, no, take it out. Technically, we could do that.
we
So-
can't, we have no enforcement
But
arm.
we could get
Correct.
advise city council to do it.
And once decisions are made, the building official is the person that enforces or makes sure that the work completed was done to the scope of what was approved here. But again, this is a consultation and no one here is saying no.
Just not there.
We're saying just not in this proposed location, but the applicant has even said that they're open to other suggestions and Layla and the other stakeholders that should be involved in this process can work to work it out and put together something that we can take another look at. So
Is there I'm sorry, this is sort of related, but is there a possibility, for example, we're interested in bike racks in general, basically, because we think we want to make Newcastle a bike friendly town. We think that's both great for the economy, great for the community and so forth. Is there a way to kind of a generic application for what would be concerned with a bike rack installation?
so
Just bike racks.
Not bike, not a rack.
It's- I'll say no and not because we do stipulate in the guidelines because of considering each location, because we have buildings that are key features, because it's not just buildings, but actually sites, streetscapes. We
And
look at things
stakeholders.
and stakeholders, we have to look at things on a case by case basis, which is why we have such broad guidelines and standards, because again, it's not just like, there's no blanket solution. We have to look at everything individually.
But there are options.
I-
Let's talk. You and I could talk and I can walk you around to some of the places we've been talking about.
Yeah, okay, sure,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, well, we invited you guys for.
I know, but
it's also, we have to be careful because you know, we can't attend something and if something comes up that we, as voting members, that we would potentially make a determination on, we don't want to be biased in this process, you know, so,
Yeah, since it was an agenda item, it would not have been in the best interest for us to make any statements outside the meeting off record.
Yeah, understood. Well, thank you, I'm sorry to
no,
take
no,
any-
no, that's fine, that's why.
I'm not representing, you know, Paso Petal's at all, I mean, but I'm interested in what these issues
Thanks.
have in relationship to tourism and economic development. So-
Yeah, and I mean, just a comment I would say is it might be worthwhile for you to, you know, work with the city administrator or, you know, just the council should work with her and other stakeholders to maybe do a study or a master plan. There are other cities comparable in size to Newcastle who have, you know, are striving to become more bike friendly, who have a historic core, and that might be one way of doing that, I think. So, but yeah, thank you for your questions.
actually, to your point, piecemealing it, which is what this represents, is not a solution either. So getting some larger strategy together that says we want to accommodate 100 bikes, or we want to accommodate 50 rental bikes, or something like that. Start with a policy idea and then take it forward into an implementation. Because if you get city council to agree that they want to do a policy that says we're going to be bike friendly. I've actually talked to a lot of city council members about stuff like this, and it's a tough road. But if we agree as a city to have this as a policy, then how you enact that policy becomes the next question.
And then
So-
to your point, then it's not a fast-tracked application like you were asking for, but it would be a comprehensive application, whereas we have this master plan, it's been approved by city council, and we want to put bike racks in these following locations, and then we can review that comprehensively all at once and say, you know, this location is approved, this location would not be, that sort of thing, so you don't have to come back every time a new
Yeah.
business or a new spot.
That's why
wants
a
to-
master
yeah.
plan is important,
Exactly.
something to guide this kind of growth. And, you know, there are a lot of documents and I have my policy degree, so I geek out on this kind of stuff, but there's already a lot of really great information. There's some things mentioned in the comprehensive plan, but there's also the 2022 transportation plan that identifies some areas, you know, if you really want to be a bike friendly city, how to do that so that it's entire city that's
So done that.
yeah, there is some work. There's feedback. I won't go into all the minutia of it, but it's if you just go to the city website and type transportation plan in the search bar, it'll come
Yeah,
up
I've looked
there.
at that material. It's not very specific when it comes down to things like bike racks. I'm working with Jim, Jim Wilson from Bike Delaware and so forth.
Did research with that.
So I almost like, my impulse is try to absolutely try to address it to the policy level, but also see if you could do something granular that could be a newer win. For example, what if I put my Windows hat on, put in an application for bike rack in front of the windows? What would happen? You know, or put in a
You'd be
console.
told no.
Yeah, but why? I'd like to know why. Yeah.
Oh, and that is addressed, like, if you.
I got something for you
Yeah,
to
the
read.
I'm reading all your streetscape stuff and understand it, but it's not, yeah, I've read it.
But the bike rack, I mean, as far from a zoning and code enforcement perspective, and that's why it would be good to have Jeff here, is because it's not just the bike rack. The bike rack is the fixed structure, but then the bikes come off from the bike rack and then all of a sudden you're obstructing the sidewalk.
Right.
So there's a aesthetic and a streetscape aspect, and then there's a safety and ADA accessibility and that sort of aspect as well.
You're also I don't know if the building is a key building, but it almost is. The booth house
Yeah.
is, you know, it's a really important building in the city, historic building, so, you know.
Yeah, and again, I think that's why, having, you know, doing things from a policy perspective, like what I typically, the way you approach things is you have a well-defined problem and you find solutions from that.
Right.
And when you work backwards, that's where things can become complicated. So, I'll stop at this anecdote, but one of the reasons my husband and I moved to Newcastle was because, not only because we wanted to live in a historic area, but, he worked at DuPont when we moved here, and then the lab moved and we found that he could take his bike on the Mark Hill Trail and it would dump him off next to the area. I'm trying to think, it's like, what is it called? The
campus?
The campus, thank
Yeah.
you. It's been a long day, so, so we didn't have to buy another car, which has been great, so,
Well, maybe we could recommend like a codicil to the transportation plan, in which discussions happen where we actually identify some sites around town that would be.
Well, you know, that's a planning
Appropriate.
commission thing.
yeah, and so this is
Yeah.
where commissions work together, and again,
Yeah.
it's a much bigger plan, and I don't know that anything is going to happen, you know, tomorrow, but at least it's a starting point, right?
Cause we're looking at traffic now, so.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, thank you guys for your patience. Thanks.
That's, it's here, it's why we
Yeah.
have public meetings and,
And we don't always
Discussion.
agree, did you notice that? Do we need to do a motion on this, or just?
not on a consultation. Sorry, I lost track of my agenda.
We're supposed to do minutes from November 9th.
They were not in the.
They were not in the packet, I did remind them.
I did see that email, yep, and. Yeah, so, I guess I will pass this.
So we'll just do it next time.
So, I do remember, oh, here it is, so the historic district map, that's something that's been brought up, and it would be better if Jeff were here and Layla were here, but, briefly, what I can say is that, so I did request this map to be added to the hack page on the website, and, I think that would be helpful. This is the overlay of the historic district, like the local designation and the National Historic Landmark District designation.
Yeah.
So what's in the purview of the Historic Area Commission is, the historic residential district, the historic commercial district, and then any buildings that are eligible for listing on the National Register of Historic Places, which fall within, I think, those are the boundaries of, 6th Street. And then I think there's a couple buildings that are outside of that.
Do you know there's a database where you can look up your?
Yes.
Is that on the page?
It is, yeah, it is on the hack page, and
Needs to
I
be
don't
more-
print it out in your packet if not, but it's the Historic Buildings Database. So you can go here and you can look up a building, you know, an address, and find if it's, you know, contributing, non-contributing, information like that. I do know that, so that, the boundaries of the National Historic Landmark District were expanded in 1984. And then I think it was either I don't know exactly which year, but it had to have been 2016 onwards. Layla and Jeff walked through and, updated the list. I think that was part of us becoming certified local government to update that. So this is current.
Well, you heard my objections in the last meeting. I won't repeat them here.
No, I just
So we-
wanted to.
Just one map.
But there
I
can't be one map, unfortunately, because there's a hack district and then there's the actual National Historic Landmark
Just call them
District.
different things,
But they
or
both,
show them
they
one
both
inside
fall
the other.
under the purview of the Historic Area Commission, which
Yeah.
having this map on the hack page might be beneficial.
Why not one map that shows both sets of boundaries? Is that what that
Yeah,
is?
so this is on page 3 of the guidelines and standards, the supplemental document that they did in 2018. So Layla mentioned that they overlaid the 2 maps because it was getting very confusing for people, so.
Well, this is the greater Newcastle. Yeah, so I'm still confused then.
It's that.
No, I understand that this is the historic area, but Lisa, what were you talking about? That there's another historic area also?
So there's the actual Department of Interior, the National Landmark District, which has different boundaries than what the hack purview is. The hack purview is actually larger than the National Historic Landmark District.
Is National Historic Landmark District inside this?
Yes,
Okay, so maybe we could is that relevant to anybody? Does anybody care?
only if you're applying, if you would be applying for one of those grants we were talking about last week, you automatically, you still have to fill out the application, but you're automatically basically approved as long as the work you're doing is approved because of your national landmark status. Whereas if you live outside of that, you would have to go through an extra
So that's
process.
relevant then, so we need to put that on here
Yeah.
too. Yeah, because now we're gonna have a class to teach people
Mhm.
how they can get supplemental money, and I sure wish I'd known about that, because I have a feeling my house is in that
I know, I
district.
did work before, and you can't do it retroactively
No.
either, which
It is in that district, actually, and so that's why I mentioned it, that it's unfortunate that so many people have left already, that they have to sit through this, but, there is on, Thursday, May 23rd at the Arsenal, Kara Briggs, who oversees the, Delaware, the State Preservation Tax Credit Program, will be there giving, a talk about that, so.
But you take my point though, if we're gonna talk about that, and I think we should on the website, we need to have that line on here so people know.
Yeah.
Cause I wasn't even conscious that it was different, and I sit through all these. If I don't know, nobody knows.
Yeah.
Just telling you. I'm pretty thick, by the way, I'm happy to admit that, I do listen and try to read things now and then.
Yeah, I mean, we could have an explanatory thing that says, within the historic district of Newcastle, there are actually 2 separate
Yeah,
things. One is the Historic Area Commission District,
and
And
then
then there's
within
the-
that.
and then
there's-
just have a separate map
Yeah,
that is clear, that says,
eligible for government money, that would make people really
yeah,
happy.
exactly. But just to make absolutely certain that it's completely clear.
Okay.
And
That's
that's,
a good idea.
Oh, so we're sort of talking about the website. Did you want to talk about gas pipes at all?
so with that, I think the only update I have for that is that I know that, I mentioned last time that I had met with Councilperson Day and, I gave him the information that I had gathered, the information that you had gathered, passed along, I summarized what we discussed during the meeting. I do know that he, did meet with a new administrator and, So that's on her radar, and I believe that she's discussing the project with Layla as well,
Okay,
so.
good, because in the minutes that Suzanne circulated at city council, he made a comment that we needed to look at it more. So that's why I sent him the motion that we made in the last meeting, that they basically need to stop it, freeze it until they get real answers. And said, did you ever see this? So, and in the next meeting, we'll talk about how we make sure people see our things going forward. Because obviously that one slipped.
So the last item we have is updates to the city website. I did, again, I just.
It's a good thing you don't have a real job, Tara. That's all I can say.
It's too bad that my first meeting started at 7 a.m. this morning. Oh, here it is. So this is not the best, it's not the best image, but it's just a screenshot of what the hack page currently looks like.
It's impenetrable.
And so I think
I know it well.
breaking this down, I think that things could be, arranged in a more user-friendly way. One thing I had talked to Layla about is that in the guidelines and standards on page 132, there is a list of resources. The Department of State Division of Historical Culture and Affairs, the Delaware Historic Preservation Tax Credit Program. We could create a section on the website with all of these resources. Preservation Delaware, which is a nonprofit, is a really great resource. I just printed out the section they have for resources and grants, and there's so many different grants and other funding streams available that might benefit people in the different areas. I imagine we could link this. There's also a lot of resources just on NPS's website, the National Park Service's website with they have even a really great podcast, but they have videos and training videos. Yeah, but kind of delves, I would say, a little deeper into things. There's also there are a lot of resources that we could make that site, I think. I also think that it would be helpful. It would be helpful to kind of have a brief description before each link, or introducing you to each link, like the design guidelines and standards, the supplemental, the supplement to the design guidelines and standards, the historic buildings database.
That's exactly what I was. I do that kind of stuff all the time now, if you want some help.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And
Let's talk about it.
this could even be something that we might want to schedule a work session for, if we want to delve a little deeper into it as a commission. I also think it would be helpful to have something that talks about the historic commercial district or the historic commerce district, because I think, there's so many people that rent and they're not aware that they may not be aware, because it may not be stipulated in their lease, that there are things that they have to comply with. So I think that would also be really beneficial to have here.
Yeah, it's not gonna be one page, it's gonna be a section with different headers and links and stuff like that. so.
I know that there's a project going on with students from the University of Delaware right now where it seems like they're redesigning this site. So it'll be interesting to see.
Trying to do it.
Yeah.
And apparently there is rule, the state has rules as well, which I don't know.
Right. Municipal websites, they usually. It has, the back end is very specific as to what you can do and what you can plug and play. What the templates look like, they're all supposed to be very streamlined, so most likely they have some kind of municipal package contract. With their back end and all of their. I don't even know how to say, it, like municipal services and email servers and.
Yeah,
So there's only so much they can do, but if the University of Delaware is redesigning it, that would be helpful.
So this would be a good time to actually begin to think about.
Yeah,
content
it's a perfect time.
And get some ideas together.
Mhm.
And also so that it just doesn't look like words and words and words and words and words. and
which is
words and
where
words.
we are now. There's no
Right.
focal point here.
Right.
Yeah.
For the ideas, but I think we need to tell them what the focal points are
Mhm.
Right.
and maybe state it in obvious terms. You know, what government resources are available to you, click here, you know, what other resources are there, you know, just make it more clear. What's actually in the historic district, what's the difference between the historic district and the,
Yeah,
whatever you just called it, I never even heard of it before.
And I mean, to that point too, I mean, that is something that we've discussed here. I've discussed it with, you know, I mentioned it in my meeting with the city administrator. Another thing, I mentioned just that ties into this and the things we've been talking about regarding the website and just this information is that, I was asked to do maybe a monthly column in a local paper that discusses.
You could commit suicide.
Before I committed to doing that, I wanted to make sure that, I asked, Miss, Tentillo or Tentillo, I'm not sure how she pronounces her last name, so I will ask, if she could look into whether or not there was any conflict in doing that. I think the last thing anybody wants is to like put something out there and then, you know, I don't particularly want to invite,
Controversy.
myself,
Yeah.
like, we'll see, if that's something we can do, but,
I think every month is a lot.
yeah,
Maybe every quarter. You know, I think,
that's-
what would you talk about? I mean.
yeah, well, I
Yeah.
think some of the things that we've discussed here, but again, if we can just put them on the website, you know, if we can clarify the information here a little bit more, there may not even be a need to do that,
Well,
so.
also make it easier to find minutes of meetings. And one of the things that we need to make more clear is what the application is and what the disposition of the application is. It should be a matter of public record, so how are we doing that?
Mhm. And I think these are all things that our new administrator can help us sort out as well, yeah.
I think we still have to talk about the bricks, don't we?
We took that item off the agenda just because, Mr. Bergstrom is not here,
Oh,
so.
so you're just sitting here for fun.
Move that.
No.
You grew the beard so that we wouldn't recognize you for nothing.
see, I was gonna say now we'll recognize you next time.
I'll wear the glasses with the nose and the mustache.
Exactly.
In that case, we're done, aren't we?
Are there any, do you have, anyone else have any additional thoughts here?
No, but we do need an agenda item for planning commission updates here. A standing
Sure.
agenda item, not that I have one for you today, but, because we have a
Should be on our-
standing agenda item for hack update on planning commission.
Are there any public comments before we?
Budget season, you should go for as much money as you can for what you want to do. I say that because the city has that bucket of cash. And if you don't get your portion, someone else will. And with all you have, or all you are wanting to do, you're gonna need to cash it. And you should, because you are such a significant part of the city, or the impact so significant. You need, some of the things that you were talking about. Is the outreach of what the commission is doing. And go for the cash to do that.
It's funny because you mentioned that, Layla and I were discussing, because the budget's coming up, getting the CLG grant money on there as a line item, so because we qualify for that every single year.
And there's a spreadsheet, so you can make the cells big as you need to get the money you need.
Yeah, bigger sell, more money, is that what you're saying?
Longer the sell.
The downside is it's always underestimated what you really need, and two, then when they get into squabbling about whether you get nickels and dimes when you actually need dollars, you need to make the number substantial to get what you need. You'll have the same problem in planning as far as the approvals for making the next plan. You know, because when the last plan was done, it was your first lunch month.
Yeah.
You know, and you'll be up in 6 figures by the time it's done again.
We're aware.
And also, I think you guys are heroes, so
Yes.
seriously.
Thank you, and
Right.
thank you for coming and sitting through this with us, and
Yeah,
for your questions and comments. It's nice talking to an empty room sometimes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any last comments from my fellow commissioners? Great. I'd like to make a motion to end the meeting. All those in favor?
Thank you guys for putting up with my feistiness.
I